the earliest of that internet era, you could kind of say anything. You could really get your shit off. I know people always say, 2011 Twitter, and then people will bite back and say, no, it was worse. It was worse when you could just do whatever. But I mean, the world changed, and you couldn't just like spout off whatever. And then, and I bet you guys went through this as well. Like, as I got into business and I got into media and started building connections, it just like didn't behoove me to shit on ESPN, right? Or what have you.
Yeah.
And so you definitely got to balance that as you grow a following, as you're trying to build platforms like you guys do. And, you start working at these important places and you're around all these people. And that's part of it too. Like, I can spout all these takes off on basketball all day, but like I'll have to see Ben Simmons in a few days. I have to see this person. It's not that like I'm afraid to say what I want to say. It's like I do have to weigh these real life interactions, and I think it's better this way. Like I think it's like, you do have to have some consequences to your shit. It's all about whether or not you can actually just still have your takes or stand on what you're thinking. And to me, that all boils down to like, did you actually make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Like if I criticize, I'm only using them because I'm watching the game now, but like if I criticize Kyrie's play, but it actually makes sense in the ideal world, like when I see him and I go, yeah, man, you turned it over a lot. Ideally, he'll be able to go, yeah, I did. Or even explain to me like, yeah, but some of those turnovers are this or whatever. So, it just turned into a thing to me where you just had to make more sense. You could still pop off and talk your shit, but there had to be some basis behind it. And I actually like that better. I think it inquires, it needs more intellect. And so it works for me, I think.
Yeah, it hasn't. I could tell it really hasn't made you jaded, because I would be 1,000% annoyed if Nets World was in my mentions every day. Ooh, what do you mean? You wouldn't tell that to Kyrie in his face. Why don't you go tell Kevin that? It would kind of make me like, damn, watching basketball is kind of like a chore now.
In some ways it is, and I don't want to sound like a prude, but like it can be in a lot of ways. I was talking to somebody about, I do the show on FanDuel called Run It Back, and it's a 3 days a week show. And in a weird way, it turned watching basketball into a job. Like every night I have to kind of watch most of these games and understand what I'm talking about the next day. And so you approach it different. And when you approach it as a job, like it can feel like a job, but the good thing for me is it's like, it's a fun job. It's not the worst job ever. And, the thing about like, yo, you wouldn't tell Kevin, I'm probably like bitching at Kevin more than anybody. Like I literally can see him after a game and be like, dog, 8 turnovers? What the? and have him go, all right, but we won, so shut up or whatever. But like, that's my thing is like, if I say it, I'm willing to say it to whoever I'm talking about or talking to. And that goes all the way back to like music criticism when I used to do that way more and stuff like that. It's like, I've interviewed these artists. I've sat down with J. Cole and said, yo, I didn't like For Your Eyes Only. What the fuck was that? Mm-hmm. And you have to have that willingness to stand on your word. And I don't think a lot of people do, because it's so easy to troll and kind of be anonymous now. But I pride myself on that.
And I think a lot of people, they lose that as well. Like people think that we wouldn't. Like we absolutely would. And sometimes in the things that we do and the jobs that we have, and, Josh, back me up if you feel the same way. We have to, in order for things to be successful, we have to be honest. We have to tell our opinions.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think that's kind of what there's value in opinion and point of view. And, but I think to Banz's point, like there needs to be consequences to the internet stuff. And I think that's what a lot of that shit lacks. And that's why you kind of get these crazy takes. And some people might feel away and they're like, oh, you're in this space now, so you don't have these crazy hot takes anymore. And it's like, nah, I'm just respectful of the situation. And I understand that like there's a consequence to it now. And that consequence might not be a bad one, but I have to back it up and stand on it to some degree. And sometimes I waste that time, so I totally get it. It happens a lot in music. And I kind of get over like the Twitter music opinion, because there's so many out there. And yeah, we can have an opinion on the art, but I feel like a lot of people have opinions on the business. And it's like, you don't really know or understand the business. You're just kind of just reading the headlines and making an assumption. So yeah, it's interesting.
I hate that. I hate the business convo of music, because there's so much that goes into a lot of these decisions, and like it's just beyond. But like, no, I agree. And you said the important word, and it's like a very adult word. And as you kind of work around this, and as you grow more and mature more, respectful. Like you do have to be respectful. That doesn't mean you can't disagree. You can you can respectfully disagree. And I think I don't say it as like some tough shit either. Like, yo, I'll tell them to their face. It's not like that. But, I'm willing to stand on my opinion. I'm also willing to, I've sat with Kevin and talked ball in various situations, and then him kind of like prove me wrong and go, you know what? I get your perspective. And I think I might have came at that wrong. I think one of the situations that was like that this year is the Draymond fight. And I'm that must happen all the time. Like, fuck it. That's like tough guy shit. And then, in talking to Kevin, and we talked about this on our podcast as well. It's like, nah, that's not normal at all. Like that doesn't happen all the time. Like this idea that we're just fighting all the time in training camp and practices, that's not real at all. And I'm like, what? And so he's able to give me more information than I had before. And I'm like, oh, okay. So I was really wrong.
Yeah. And
I think that's the two-way street, right? You have to be willing to accept you're wrong a lot too.
Yeah. And people have just such this inflated view of any popular creative industry where it's like, well, they're not telling you the whole thing, but I know the whole thing because this is what I've kind of made up in my head. Like no one's told me this. I just made it up in my head. And I think that that's the most, the most crazy part about it is that like Josh said, there's value in an opinion, and it's like there's a reason why we're silent. There's a reason why we can't say anything, and there's a reason why we don't talk about things like that. And it's not only to protect, our positions, but it's protect the kind of the sanctity of the magic that is slowly dwindling from a lot of industries right now. Like we see too much. We're privy to too much. To your point, like the Draymond fight, we should have never seen that. And in fact, us seeing it made it worse. You know what I mean? Like it made the conversation a discourse at that point where it could have been, for all intents and purposes, they could adapt up afterwards, and it wouldn't have been nothing. It turned into something way bigger than that, or you just never know.
There's this really great convo. I think it's a podcast. It's Andre 3000 and Rick Rubin, and Andre says that like I just know too much about music, and I almost can't enjoy music anymore because they're talking about like he goes off on the flute and he's not rapping no more and all this stuff, and that's how I feel about certain stuff too. Like. We've become jaded. We know too much, and we can talk wrestling too because I know that's your guys' lane, and that's actually one of the reasons I gravitated towards what you guys do so much. It's like wrestling is not meant to be consumed the way we do.
No,
like we're not supposed to know Sasha Banks was going to show up in New Japan.
Yeah.
We're supposed to just like fucking be amazed, and we're supposed to hear about it 3 days later or whatever. But like, we knew that like 2 months ago, right. and it goes like. Of course we don't enjoy the product. We know all the fucking twists and turns. We make it suck. Like we make it trash. And that goes on to like some music. And you remember when I don't remember who did it first. I feel like it might have been Beyonce, but it was like they didn't list the features on the album. And then all of a sudden you hear like Future or whatever. Like I forget what album it was.
Was it self-titled? I want to say a self-titled.
It might have been that. It might have been, but it was like we didn't know who was on it, and it was like, oh shit, Jay-Z rapped a verse on it. This is fire. Like we don't have surprise to anything anymore.
No.
And that's just the world we're in. And that's, I was watching Game of Thrones, and it's like, even when it's beyond the book, the episodes leak. Like there's nothing is sacred anymore. And I think that ruins a lot of shit for us. And we need to go back to where we didn't know everything. Using Beyonce again, she had this point about like I think it was Etta James. Like I didn't know who she was dating. I didn't know shit. I just heard the songs, and it needs to be better like that. And I think that's true of sports. I think it's true of a lot of different arenas. And as somebody who works in it, I know you guys deal with it as well. It's like I almost don't get to have fun with this anymore.
No,
and I just want to have fun with it. Like I just want to enjoy the games. I just want to like But people get mad at me because I'm like. I want like the most entertaining timeline of whatever this is. Like I want the Pelicans to get the number 1 overall pick from the Lakers because it's just the most chaotic and fun version of whatever the NBA is. And not because I care deeply about any of it, but like that'll be fun. That'll be a hilarious story. And I just want things to be fun. All of this shit. Right. And I hate that we know so much and we ruin it for ourselves.
Would that necessarily mean that you have a preference on past publications? Obviously, bands, you were a big part of the Smoking Section. Coming up, 5 has been part of Complex, Hundreds, numerous other publications. Would you kind of want to go back to that area where you had the time to formulate opinions and actually tell stories, or is the microphone a lot more comfortable and free flowing? No,
I can't. I don't want to speak for bands, but like writing is just such a death sink. Like Even when I was doing stuff like at the hundreds and stuff like that, where it was like the only kind of fun stuff I would do was when I would have someone that wasn't like a traditional like write or do stuff. Like I would get like ironically I would get Josh, and he would write stuff for the hundreds, and I'd be like, oh, this is cool because we get to talk about something different, and it's not normal. I don't feel like they would allow something like that anymore.
No, I agree with you 100%, and I think look, everybody hates Bill Simmons now, but when he was writing really conversational, that was like groundbreaking. That completely changed sports media, kind of for the worse. But when he did it, it changed it. And I remember the guy who used to write on Up Rocks about wrestling, and he ended up being a creep and almost everybody from that era.
Brandon Stroud.
Yeah, he used to write really conversational about wrestling. He used to I forget what his column was called, but that was really interesting. And a lot of the music blogs are like that too. And Smoking Section, that's why I gravitated to that. That's gone. Like that just doesn't exist anymore. And that's what makes it tough. I remember talking to Zach Lowe from ESPN, and I'm like, yo, you like really begrudgingly got on TV and on the mic. And he was like, yeah, like I still like begrudgingly do it, but it's so much easier than spending a week writing a piece and revising and just sinking into it. And it's true. I mean, I was used to writing these 2,000-3,000 word, epics. Yeah. And it would take me months sometimes. I had to do multiple interviews. I'd really sit with that shit. Now I can just rant.
I had to do a J305 piece way back in the day. And that shit went through 3 months of revisions and pushbacks. And I was like, bro, this is just J3. Nothing. He's awesome dude. Like he still reaches out to me to this day. Great guy. But he was like, where is it? Like, you sent me out to his neighborhood. I drove around with him all day, all of this stuff. I spent so much time. Where's the piece at? And like, I'm like, I can't do that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Like where I'm at now, and when I like switched over to doing podcasting, it was to legitimately get my thoughts out unfiltered and, kind of unencumbered by what was going on in an editing room. And I can't see myself going back to that. It's just, you got to really, really fucking love writing to be writing right now in this era. You know what I mean? When there's just so many quicker ways to get money. I'm not even gonna lie. You got to really love writing to be writing right now.
I mean, yeah, the money is a part of it as well. There's no way around that. Like, when I started writing at Smoking Section, I was writing for free. And then when I finally got paid, I was so geeked. I was getting $10 an article. And I'm like, shit, I'm going to do $100 a month. And that's a rack. And I'm good. Like, I was in school. I was getting, financial aid. So I was like, cool. There is no world in which I could open my laptop for $100 an article right now. Like, there's no, and not just because I'm older, but like, it takes so much time to do that shit. It's just like, it's a tough industry to be in. And I was actually talking to Cam about this today, because we were still upset about that Rolling Stone article about masculine rap or whatever.
Oh, masculine rap. Too. Okay.
Yeah. And it was just like a lot of blogging and writing now. It's just like, how can I anger people? You know what I mean? How can I make people retweet this and be pissed off?
Bro, I didn't. When I saw that, how can I get
on this moral high ground? And it's just like, I just can't do it. I'm gonna look terrible.
When I saw that article come out, I just didn't even pay any mind. I knew what it was, but people interacted with it that whole morning. I was like, I knew what this was. Like, listen, if you like Drake, if you like Future, just keep fucking listening to him. The Rolling Stone doesn't determine culture no more. I think I told Cam this today. We gotta have Cam drop in on the show one day. But like, I tell him all the time, like publications don't create the culture no more. The people really do. Like, the people create the community now. You know what I mean? And I think, like, as we go into the future, they will start to see that, and it may go back to the way that it was and see that it should be more community focused, or it may not. But at the end of the day, like, you got to take this shit for face value, what it is. Like, this person who wrote it has to make money, because I bet you if you were in that person's face again and you press them on, they'd be like, hey man, I did it for some quick bread. That's literally what it is. Like, I bet you don't feel that way.
What you just said is it. The community, the people find shit now. Like, nobody wrote an article about Glorilla and that song before it blew. People were finding it on YouTube. They're finding it on TikTok. They're finding it everywhere. They found it. Like, people make shit pop now. And it used to be the blog era. Like, we all come from that, right?
Right.
It used to be, you'd find out about Wale on one of those blogs, or you'd find out about J. Cole or Kid Cudi or whomever. And like, there was real tastemakers. Now it's like, yo, people are running this song into the ground on TikTok, and this artist is actually interesting. Oh shit. And or this person has a big following on Instagram. How did this happen? And they have this great song. Oh, and it's so much more organic now.
Yeah.
And that's why you kind of have to chase those stories as, as publications. Right. There's nothing else to write about. You're not making artists anymore. And, like I said, I was talking to Cam about it, and we're both, we're writers at heart. So it's like, yo, this sucks. Like, I hate where this is going.
I hate it here.
I get the hustle, but I just hate it because I like reading. Like, I'm old. I like to sit there and read articles on my phone, and I can't no more, really.